my name is Crystal Jagreb, and this is Empowered by Women Business Class. This is a new mini-series we're introducing to our YouTube and podcast platforms that I am so excited to finally be bringing to you all. Most of you are already familiar with the interviews we do with other women entrepreneurs, where we dive into a little bit more of their stories with how they got started and where their businesses are today. Don't worry, those interviews aren't going anywhere. But this mini-series is going to be diving into strategies and not just stories. We'll be collaborating with select women-owned and led brands to dive into all of those juicy things that are really going to help you up-level your business, develop new skills, and break down any mindset barriers you might be holding on to as an entrepreneur. Each collaboration will be a multi-part series within this mini-series so that we can really focus on specific topics with experts in all of those fields. Each episode will drop on the first Thursday of every month, so make sure you stay tuned, have your pen and paper ready to take notes so we can really build that business of your dreams. All right, let's get into it. Today on Empowered by Women Business Class, we're collaborating with The Forward Female, which is a coaching and creative agency based in the Los Angeles, California area. This is part one of their four-part series, and today we're being joined by the incredible Lauren Cheek, who is the co-founder and creative director of the women-owned and led brand. And today's topic is going to be all about how we identify our purpose and our creative business. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining with me today, and I'm so excited to dive into this session with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited too. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and excited to dive in.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and do it, should we? So tell us, where do we even begin? How does someone start to identify their purpose and what their creative business is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think obviously that's a loaded question, right? It becomes daunting when you start to say, okay, well, what is my life's purpose, right? That can feel a little overwhelming for people. And so I always say break it down, right? Break it down to your core values and what really, really matters to you. So I always say if like something got taken away from you, what would you be like the most devastated by, right? Like, would it be like not being able to talk to your family, your friends, having social time? Like that's how you really start to identify those core values and what's really, really important to you. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, but I guess I'll go into this because there's an exercise that kind of breaks down each section. And I think that really helps people be able to identify. So I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But before I do go into that, I just want to say, I think we all grow and shift too. And as we grow and evolve and change our interests, that we grow and evolve and everything shifts and changes with that. But when you're able to get really clear on the four categories within this exercise, I'll walk you through, it really helps you kind of break down, okay, how can I really show up and provide value for people? How can I really be doing something that I not only love, but something that's needed? And so the exercise is called Ikigai, and it's a Japanese term, and it's all about it. The meaning is really finding life's purpose, life's meaning. And it's broken into these four circles and these four different categories. And the first one is, what do you love to do? What can you get paid for to do? What does the world need more of? And what are you naturally good at? Like, what's just something that comes effortlessly and easy for you? And so I've found doing that exercise, that kind of helps unpack that loaded question and kind of break it down into the categories of, okay, here's what I love to do. Here's what I'm really passionate about. But sometimes that's not enough, right? Like you need to know that there's a need for it and that the world is needing that as well. And so being able to kind of identify all those points, at least for me, has really helped guide me in a direction, and anybody that I've coached or worked with, really to get that clarity moving forward so that it's not so overwhelming.
I think that is an incredible exercise, and I just want to repeat it again, those four elements. So
Mhm.
what do you love to do? What can you get paid for? What does the world need more of? And what are you good at?
Yes.
That is just it breaks it down to such simple terms that really anyone can just sit down and like answer these things and focus
Yeah.
on. So I think that's great. I think for people that do know what their passion is, what would you kind of say to them for any of those people that are kind of struggling, like, this is what I love to do, but I don't know how to make my way into this category, or I don't know how to find my place in this industry, what would you say to them?
I see that a lot. And I would say the biggest thing is get experience, right? Dive in, even if it's just volunteering or doing an internship, try to get your foot in the door in some way in that world of whatever industry you want to work in. Because a lot of the time you think it's going to be something and then you start doing it and you're like, actually, maybe this isn't what I want to do. So I always tell people try to get as much experience as you possibly can. And then find people to model after, right? Like find people that are already doing what you want to be doing successfully, and model them really. Like see the steps that they've taken, study them, see what they're doing, see what funnels they have coming in and how they're creating all that income and really break it down. But I always say find good models and role models so that you can really see the path that they've already trailblazed and be able to kind of create your own wheel from that, but take the same kind of structure and format that's already working.
I think that's a great tip to kind of find someone that's already, walked the path before you. I know there are some entrepreneurs that are out there that are kind of worried about like, oh, I don't want to like feel like I'm copying anyone, or I
Right.
know they don't want to share like their tips and tricks and I don't want to reach out. But there are so many women that are out there and wanting to help you and wanting to show you how they've done things. I also love
Yeah.
that point that you made about, just try it out. And if you don't like it, then then it's fine. Try something
You can
new.
always, yeah, be flexible and pivot. And that's why I intentionally said model and not copy, because you're not copycatting somebody. You're not exactly doing what they're doing. You're just more so modeling your kind of actions after what they've done. And you don't even have to have an actual conversation with somebody to be able to do this. They don't even have to be still living. There's a lot of ways to kind of go through, especially now that we have the internet and all this education information, to be able to see what they're already doing successfully and kind of study their background. A lot of the times, if it is somebody who's notable, they'll have kind of some documentaries or some information about their backstory and how they got started. And if you do a little bit of digging, you're like, oh, wow, actually, they started as an assistant, or Tony Robbins started as a janitor. And so it's like, people start in all sorts of different places and levels. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is find the people that are going to support you through that process too. Find the people that are going to have that community, really, that's going to give you that support and that accountability. And that is really what we're passionate about and why we started our community, because we really realize that it's not easy being an entrepreneur, and it's definitely, there's some hard days. And even if you have a good plan and a strategy, you're still going to run up against a lot of roadblocks. And that's when you need kind of that support and that accountability to keep you going and pushing past those hurdles.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, same with our community as well. When I got
Yeah.
started, I've already had some experience with when I used to sell jewelry, and I was surrounded by all of these incredible women that also sold the same jewelry. And the energy was just unmatched. And I knew that, launching another business, I wanted that back. And I wanted to be surrounded by that. And you do absolutely need that. You need people to look up to, you need people to
Yes.
inspire you. But going back to just being open with figuring out what your purpose is. It's not
Yeah.
something that just like clicks right away and it's like, okay, this is everything that I'm gonna do. This is exactly my purpose and I know it from the get-go. It really
Mhm.
is a journey to get there, right?
Absolutely. And it's a fluid one too, right? I always tell people get really clear on the destination and your mission and vision, but be fluid and flexible with like how it kind of evolves. Because even with how we evolved Forward Female, we had an event space when we first started. So we were a totally different business model. And when everything closed down with the pandemic, we had to quickly adjust and pivot. And I think it's being able to be flexible enough to kind of like roll with the punches is what makes a successful entrepreneur. Because if you like are so tightly grasping that idea that you don't give it room to breathe, you're going to suffocate it and it's not going to be able to grow. And so I think it's really important to be able to go into it almost knowing that it's probably going to change and evolve, but you have to stay clear and like direct on your core values and the why and like kind of the vision and mission for it.
I'm so glad that you say that because there definitely is that hesitation when it does come time to pivot, like, okay, this is
Yes.
clearly not working, right? So, what considerations should someone be making when it is that time? Like, okay, maybe, maybe you should be trying something else. Maybe you need to take another look at your purpose and figure out another path that you can take it down towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we always say fail fast, right? And that failure is a good thing, right? It's just a learning lesson of what doesn't work. And so just because something didn't work out the way you had thought or expected doesn't mean it's not a good idea, doesn't mean your ideas aren't valid, doesn't mean that that won't even be successful. It just means that you figured out a way that not to do it, right? And so there's a million other ways to do it. It's just kind of having the resilience to keep pushing past those kind of pushbacks and those challenges. But like I said, I think if you're clear on your why, the how can change, and that's okay to like let it evolve and change and grow. And a lot of the times, when you do that, it evolves and grows into something even better than what you had imagined in the beginning, anyways. And so you have
Yeah,
to kind of almost surrender to the change, right? It's like kind of this evolution, like in life and anything, that you can't control every single situation, and sometimes it's working out for your benefit.
I agree with that 100%. And I felt that way about my business. Like everything has been such a natural progression. And it all goes back to my why. Like
Yeah.
everything that I'm trying to do, there always seems to be a new opportunity that presents itself that really reflects back on that why and what my mission
Hmm.
is. So speaking of mission, you did mention mission and vision a couple of
Yeah.
minutes ago. So I want to dive into that.
Hmm.
Break it down for us.
Yes, absolutely. We talk about this a lot at Forward Female, and we kind of define it as like your destination, right? That vision is, where are you trying to go? Where's the end point? And one of my favorite books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, by Stephen Covey, he always says, begin with the end in mind. And that's really stuck with me and resonated with me because I think that applies to almost every situation, really, but specifically when you're starting a business, to begin with the end in mind, to know where you want to go, where the destination is. And that helps you moonshot theory it and reverse engineer from the end all the way back to the beginning and kind of break it down so it's not so, it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And so I think that's kind of a big part of it too, is being able to kind of break it down into those chunks.
What about the people that don't know what their end game is? They're like, I don't know, I just want to do this. Like, I just want to make candles or something.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to like what we were just saying of like the mission and the vision. So really being able to know where you're going and say, like, maybe you do just want to make candles, but maybe you just want to do it for your friends and family. That's fine. But maybe you're like, I want to be distributed nationwide in all of these different stores. That's a different path and a different destination or vision, than, doing something small. So I think it's just really, being realistic with yourself too, of where you're kind of actually landing, right? Like if your goal is to, be nationwide, and you've done all the steps of reverse engineer, you have all these goals, you've laid it out, and you just find yourself not really wanting to show up and do it, that's when I would say, okay, maybe you're lacking more of the passion to do that, and it's not really resonating with you because you're not super excited about it. So you maybe either need to adjust the goal a little bit, and tweak it, or move into something that really lights your fire and gets you excited.
I love that there's that flexibility there. I was going to ask, is there such thing as an unrealistic vision? Like, is there kind of a line where we should be like, okay, maybe that's kind of like too far out there? Is it something that we
No,
should
I mean,
start
to
small with?
me, to me, that's called a glass ceiling, right? So anything is possible if you undoubtedly believe it. So if you're like, I am going to do this, anything is possible. It's just a matter of dedication and determination and consistency, really. And so I believe that you can really achieve anything you set your mind to. But that's not to say it's going to take a lot of work and also a lot of alliances. I think a big thing that, we don't talk about enough in entrepreneurship is being able to have these beautiful partnerships and collaborations and build these teams and communities that really support the vision and mission. And I think if you have the right support, the right, resources at your fingertips that you can do anything. You just have to undoubtedly believe it.
I agree with that 100%. That was literally one of the first things that I started working on when I launched Book of Bijou and I started my whole mindset journey. It was making sure I had that profound belief in both myself and what I envisioned for my brand and my product. And I
Yeah,
knew I had to have that, above all else, because if you don't believe in
absolutely.
yourself, that's going to shine through. There's
Right.
going to
No
be the
one else is going to
critics.
believe in you if you don't believe in yourself first. You have to
Right.
have the first belief, and it has to be the strongest. You have to know, like, no doubt in your mind, like, this is going to happen. It's already happened. It's happening. Like, that's how you manifest. And so to me, that's really the key. It's belief, but it's that undoubted belief. Like, no doubt in my mind, nothing's going to stop me. Like, this is happening. If you go into that mindset, I believe you can achieve anything.
Absolutely. So would you say that vision would be the same as a goal? Is
I
there a
would
time
say,
limit to a vision, I guess is what I'm kind of leaning towards.
I think that's kind of the difference between a goal and a vision. Is a vision is more of this like idea, this picture, this vision of where you're going, the direction. A goal is more of like a metrics where you have like, okay, I want to get X number of clients and reach X number of revenue. That's where you kind of set more strategic goals within your vision, right? So I was saying moonshot theory. So if you end with, we always say Fiji, right? If you're trying to get to Fiji and that's your destination, you have to plan out the itinerary, right? So you have to know, like, okay, I got a layover in New York and then I got to stop here. So you got to kind of make those plans before you even go on this trip, before you even leave the house. And I think that's where the specific goals come in, right? The goals are the specific kind of deadlines, like you said, have a timeline that are more metric driven. And then the vision is more of this path that you're working towards. There's no, to me, a true vision, if you're serious about it and you want to accomplish something, there's no timeline on it. It's just when it gets done, it gets done. But the goals is where you start to break it down and fit it into a timeline, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So I just wanted to make that really clear, but the vision
Yeah.
is where you can really, just go crazy, let
Dream.
your
Yeah.
imagination run
Absolutely.
wild.
And like I said, if you believe it, you can do it. But if you let all the doubt of negative self-talk or other people around you not believing in you or the internet or whatever, you let all these voices and all this noise come at you and absorb into you and say like, oh, well, they said I can't do it. I guess I can't do it. You're not going to do it. Like you have to believe it so strongly that nothing's going to get in your way and nothing's going to stop you. And that's that like true undoubted belief.
Give us a little example. Like, let's go with forward female.
Yeah.
What is the vision of the forward female?
Yeah, absolutely. So the vision for us has always been to help empower women to start and grow businesses. We've always been really, really passionate about empowering women, and really empowering women to empower other women, right? To build this kind of safe space of community where there's genuine and authentic relationships that are built, where people do show up for each other, people do want to help and support and answer questions. And it's a safe space to be able to kind of have some allies on the journey of being an entrepreneur. And I think that's super crucial as you go through it. And so for us, it's always been to help women. It's always been to empower women, specifically in business, because we feel like if we can empower women to be stronger in business and to step up and feel more confident, that we're creating more balance in the workplace. And that just kind of equates to a better world. So we really believe in helping women get that confidence to really get the idea out of their head and give them the strategy and the assets and the resources to really put it into action and do it.
That's a great example because I was, trying to pay attention to all the little details and it wasn't so like, narrowed down to specific metrics like you mentioned for a goal. And it
Mhm.
really is just your overall vision for what you want to accomplish within the brand.
Yeah.
So vision compared to mission, are those interchangeable?
Yes. And I would say it's pretty similar to what you were saying with the goals. I mean, a vision is, like I was saying, kind of that destination where you're wanting to go. The mission is more of your core values, right? So that's more of like what's going to align with you to get to that vision. And then the metrics, the goals of breaking down the vision to get there. But they do go hand in hand, but they aren't the same, if that makes sense.
So, what is your Forward Female's mission compared to its vision?
Yeah, so I would say the vision, like I said, is helping women start and grow businesses. And our mission is really doing that through our community, our creative agency, and our business coaching. And so that's our like broken down kind of strategic steps to getting to our vision. And so within that, we break down goals and different like objectives that we want to hit, different metrics. And that's how we kind of define out the strategy to getting to that. But really it's not even once we get to that place, we're always still expanding and growing on the vision, right? So it's there's never going to be like an end destination where we're like, oh, we're done, like we helped women start and grow businesses, that's it, like let's go. So it's always kind of striving towards being able to expand that and do it in a bigger way and have bigger impact and be able to help more.
Yeah, I can see how that mission kind of broke it down into different pathways that would lead you to your vision.
Mhm.
While you were talking, I kind of envisioned like a mind map where, the
Yeah.
middle circle is your vision, and
Uh-huh.
then all those other supplemental circles are your mission. Like, which paths are you going to take to get to
Exactly.
that circle?
Exactly. Yeah. The vision is really like where you're trying to get to. And then I would say the mission is kind of breaking that down of like, how are you going to get there? Right. Like what are the steps and like, what are your funnels and avenues that lead to that, like you said?
So if someone were, if any of our listeners or viewers were sitting down now and you were giving them the assignment of, okay, write down your brand's mission, like what makes an effective mission statement, and what are the tips that you would give them when figuring that out?
I would say get really clear on first, like I said, the funnels and the avenues of your business. And obviously you have to kind of start with the vision first of knowing where you're trying to get in order to break it down. Because if you just start saying, oh, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and you don't really understand what it's getting you to, then it's not as effective and productive as being more strategic. And so I would say with a mission statement, you want to be really clear and specific, kind of with those, being able to identify those funnels or steps to get to the vision.
So what other, actionable items do you think you can give to our viewers and listeners, those that are just starting out, those that are trying to identify what their purpose is, what their creative business is, how are they going to enter this entrepreneurship journey? How would you kind of guide them down that path of how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say kind of like what we've been talking about, really break down your why and what you want to be doing. And I think the Ikigai exercise is a great one because it does do it really simply, of just breaking down what you like versus what the world needs, what you're talented at naturally, and all of those things. And so doing exercises like that are great because it really I always say you have to ask the right questions. You have to ask yourself the right empowering questions, because it's easy to kind of start that negative self talk loop, which takes you totally away from the goal. And so I think it's really important to be able to kind of stay clear and direct on the path and not um, get too caught up in that. So I would say really get clear on what you want first, get really clear on what it is that you're trying to work towards. And make sure that your mindset is really positive and working for you, not against you, right? Make sure that your mind is your best coach and not your worst critic. It's easy to kind of cross that line sometimes. And then, like I said, find support and community to where you can start asking questions and finding people that are in the same industry in the area that you're wanting to go in. And try and get experience as much as possible too, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know and you think you want to go in a path. And once you try it, you're like, oh, actually, maybe I like this part of it, or actually, I want to do something totally different. And so I would say really try to immerse yourself as much as possible. And even if you can't get an internship or get in-person experience, get on YouTube, get on Google, like get resourceful. We have so much access to information and education. I would say really get your resources together, everything from, books and audibles to YouTube to just doing Google searches on finding people that are in that same realm that are doing what you're doing successfully or you want to be doing successfully. And start to really take some notes and see, well, what have they done throughout their career to get to that point? And what are they doing now that I could be starting to adapt into my space and make my own, but to get to that end goal.
Before I forget, do you happen to have like any kind of documents or any content referencing the Ikigai on the Forward Female website?
Yeah, we do. Not on our website. We did actually do that exercise at one of our events at the beginning of the year. And I can send that to you so you can share with your listeners because that's a great resource and asset to have. Yeah, absolutely. But I would say also journaling too. Just you can ask yourself the right questions. Say like, what do I want to be doing in 5 years? A good one to ask yourself too, if you're just completely unsure, is if money were no object and I had unlimited wealth to do whatever I want, what would I do? How would you spend your time? And be realistic. Don't just say, I would be traveling, like doing what? Like, what would excite you about traveling? Like meeting new people, or is it like seeing new sights, or is it taking photos while you're traveling? Like, what is it? And keep asking yourself why. Like, keep digging those layers deeper and really get to the core root of why you want to do something. And that's kind of where you find the passion.
Yeah, I like the mention of that question, like if you had all the money in the world, like what would you be doing? Because that really does take all the obligation out of it. Like
Right,
nothing is holding you back. What do
right,
you want? What do you want
right.
out of life?
Well, and there's too
Mhm.
many people that work jobs just to get a paycheck. And it's like, that's just keeping you on the hamster wheel, you know? And
Mhm.
if you want to break out and be free, like you have to really decide what makes me as an individual happy, right? Like, what do I love doing if I could do anything? Like, what really lights me up? And everyone's so different. And I think that's where it goes back to your ikigai. Like, that's where your natural skills and kind of all those questions start to rise to the surface because you're like, oh, wow, actually, I'm naturally really good at taking photos and creating content. And my friends are not as great and not naturally as loving as they don't naturally love doing that as much. And so maybe that's a direction. And so it's kind of like unpacking those things of being like, oh, well, actually, I would love doing that every day. Like, if I had tons of money, like, I would love designing houses. I would love traveling and taking photos. Like you kind of start to really see what do I really like and what really makes me happy as a person versus like what do I have to do to make money, which I think that kind of drives you in a totally different way.
Yeah, I think it comes down to self-awareness, which is,
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I was really focusing on when I really dove into my entrepreneurial journey. And it's being just really grounded in who you are, what you're interested in, what you want out of life, what you're willing to do. You would need to have that discipline. Of course, if you're
Yeah.
going to be an entrepreneur, you can say like you want to be a painter, but if you like don't want to paint all hours of the day or
Right.
whatever, that's something that you're going to want to consider too. So having that
Right.
really deep self-awareness of what you want and who you are.
100%. And a good way to kind of do that too is to do a time audit of like go through your like for a week, just like schedule or write down like everything you're doing, like how you're spending your time. And after a week, you'll really see like, oh, wow, I'm on Instagram way too much, or I'm watching way too much TV, or I'm going out too much with friends, or whatever. You can kind of start to see where your time is being spent. And that's how you're able to kind of break it down too and get more clear of like, okay, if I really do want to be the next Bob Ross. Like I got to be like in the studio painting like every night. You have to really put in that dedication. But if you aren't showing up for yourself, then maybe that's not the right path. That's maybe where you're lacking the passion. So it's just kind of really unpacking it and seeing like, okay, what does make me happy? What does light me up? And where am I consistently wanting to show up?
Such a great starting point. That's definitely, something that I've always believed in, finding something that you're passionate about and letting that passion really pave your path forward.
Yeah.
And that's when things will, start to really just align with who you are naturally. Again, that natural progression, opportunities will show themselves to you
Yes.
because you're showing who you really are to the universe.
Absolutely. And I'm a big manifester. I'm big on law of attraction, energy, and I truly believe that, I mean, now it's scientifically proven that the energy that we emit is at a different frequency, right? And so if you're emitting high energy, you're excited, you're pumped, you're passionate, you're going to attract that back. You're going to start bringing in other people, other opportunities that are at that same level. If you're going into things like, oh, woe is me, like, why do I have to do this? You're going to start seeing a lot of negativity showing up. And so I think it really, I always say it is what you tell yourself. And it's a good little kind of like mindset check of like, okay, like it is what you tell yourself. So what am I telling myself to get myself through this situation? Am I making it a positive thing and making it work to my benefit? Or am I trying to let the critic in my mind take over instead of the coach? And so it's kind of those
Yeah.
little moments of awareness.
I couldn't agree more. And that kind of goes back to, we didn't even mention it, but something that I like to practice daily is, gratitude, because that
Yeah,
shifts how you go
absolutely.
about your day and takes out or attempts to take out all of that negativity at the beginning of your day, so you can really go through your day in a positive manner and
Yeah,
allow all of that incredible energy and opportunity to come your way.
100%. And it's a great way to quickly shift too, right? That like state of mind. If you are kind of falling into that negativity, to be able to quickly get back into a high frequency is to practice gratitude and just even start listing it off out louder in your head. And it helps you instantly kind of go into a different state of mind and paradigm.
I feel like I could talk with you about this stuff like all day.
I know. I love it. I literally could talk about it all day.
Right. I mean, and this is like that, that's kind of going back to that energy. It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
we're putting all this energy out there that, this is clearly something that we're both passionate about, which is why we could go on and on. But we are nearing the end of this session. It's been a really incredible one. I think there's such key steps that you've given our audience to kind of take that first step forward and really start identifying their purpose and figuring out how they're going to be moving forward to create a life that they love and deserve. Do
Yeah.
you have any final tips for our audience?
I mean, I would just say that life is too short to not be doing what you love, right? I think that we're so blessed and we have so many opportunities, and there's so much in the world for us to experience that if we aren't showing up and being happy every day, like what are we doing? What are we wasting our life on, right? We have that choice. The only thing that we have control of is our thoughts, words, and actions. And so really being able to take your control back and take your power back and be happy and live a life you want, create that dream life. Like nothing is stopping you except you. So I'd say that's
Isn't
your
it
biggest thing.
incredible? Yeah, it's so incredible how those things go hand in hand. Taking your
Yeah.
power back will just lead you to being, the happy you that you deserve to be.
100%. Yeah, because it's like focusing that good energy back on yourself instead of like giving it away. And then you feel like depleted and like your battery's drained. You're like fueling yourself back up.
Yes, love it. Love it. Love all of the energy you're giving out, love all the tips that you're
Oh,
giving. This has
likewise.
been an incredible first session. So thank you again, Lauren, for joining us.
Thank you. So happy to chat with you. Like I said, I could talk about this all day. So it's so
No,
fun.
I'm like, do we want it to end right now? But and for our audience, for our viewers and listeners, wherever you're tuning in, whether it's on YouTube or your favorite podcast channel, thank you so much for tuning in to part one of this four-part series on Empowered by Women Business Class in collaboration with the Forward Female. Be sure to tune in next month for part two, and we will see you then. Thanks again, Lauren.
Thank you. Bye. Talk to you soon.